Hello, you're looking at me and you're seeing the number 97. That is how old I am. It is a strange thing to be this age. People often ask me what it feels like, expecting perhaps a magical answer about wisdom or peace. But the truth is more grounded than that. When you hit 90, something fundamental changes in your mind. You find yourself thinking so much more about the past. It happens naturally because you suddenly realize that the future is not going to be anywhere near as important in your life as the past was. The road ahead is short and the road behind is long. Sitting here, I realize that one of the hardest parts of living this long is the silence that grows around you. You lose a lot of your friends. As the years go by, you have fewer and fewer people who knew you when you were young, people who understand your references and your history. My circle has shrunk. It is just the reality of longevity. But while my timeline has shifted, my memory of where I came from remains the anchor of who I am. I was born in 1928. My adolescence took place in the shadow of the Second World War. When I look at the world today, I see so much anxiety, but I also see so much abundance that people take for granted. You have to understand, when I went to school, the teacher would ask the class, "What does your father do?" And 90% of us had to say our fathers were unemployed. That was the reality. People didn't have food. We had no luxuries whatsoever. We didn't know what it meant to have extra. We only knew what it meant to survive. It was in that world, a world of scarcity, that I received the most important piece of advice of my life. It came from my father. Way back then, he looked at me and said, "You can't count on getting married and being supported." Now, you must realize how radical that was. For most young women of my generation, marriage was the only goal. The plan was simple: find a husband and he will take care of you. But my father refused to let me fall into that trap. He told me, "You have to find a way to earn your own living." That advice saved me. It shaped my entire existence. At that time, the choices for women were very limited. You could be a nurse, a teacher, or a stenographer. I chose nursing. I went into the program at McGill, and I can tell you now, looking back from 97, that decision served me very, very well. It made everything else that came after easier because I knew I could cope. I knew I had a skill. I wasn't just existing, I was capable. Later, I even studied art at night because it became my passion. But I never had to ruin that passion by trying to earn a living from it. I had my independence first. This nursing training did more than just pay the bills. It built my character. It gave me the tools to handle the negatives that inevitably come into everyone's life. And believe me, the negatives do come. You cannot live almost a century without facing things that threaten to break you. But because I was trained to deal with crisis, to deal with pain, I found ways to cope. I think about confidence often. I look at young people today, and I wonder where their foundation lies. I was really lucky in my parents. I had terrific parents who set marvelous examples for me. There was a rule in our house, a rule I still carry with me today. We don't use the word hate in this house. My mother said that, and we simply didn't do it. It wasn't just about manners, it was about how you view the world. We didn't let that toxicity in. I often look at the world today, and I feel a deep sense of empathy for the young parents of this generation. It must be very, very difficult to raise children now. You might look at me and think, what does she know? She's from a different time. And you would be right. I raised my children during the Vietnam War. Let me tell you, that was a very, very concerning time. The world felt like it was going crazy. We had political unrest, a draft, and a war that divided the country. But even with all that chaos, I honestly feel what we faced then is no comparison to what I feel is happening right now. There is a fundamental shift in how we view our role as parents, and I worry it is doing a disservice to the next generation. Parents today, for some reason, have decided that children are supposed to be happy. That seems to be the ultimate goal, make the child happy. Was it like that before? No, it wasn't. We took life a little more seriously back then. We didn't wake up every day thinking, how can I make my child happy today? We felt that being a parent carried responsibilities. You had to parent your children. And the most important part of that job was to prepare them for the fact that life wasn't going to be about being happy all the time. Life is hard. Life is full of disappointments. If you raise a child to believe that their default state should be happiness, how will they cope when the inevitable negatives arrive? We prepared our children for the reality of the world, not the fantasy of it. We taught them resilience, not just joy. And speaking of resilience, people often ask me about the secret to my longevity. How do you live to 97? They ask, looking at me like I hold a magic potion. I am in very good shape for my age. I admit that. When it comes to health, you have to be honest. A lot of that is genes. You cannot choose your parents, and biology plays a hand you cannot fold. But there is another side to it, a side that involves the choices you make every single day. I look back at my peers, the people I grew up with. I lost a lot of friends in their 60. Think about that, they're 60. That is 30 years of life they missed out on compared to me. Why? A lot of them were heavy drinkers and pretty heavy smokers. That alone makes a huge difference. I was not a smoker. It sounds so simple, perhaps even boring. But the fact that I didn't smoke cigarettes is likely one of the main reasons I am still sitting here talking to you. You think you are invincible when you are young, but the habits you form are the architects of your future. You can't abuse your body for decades and expect it to carry you to a century. But life is not just about surviving. It is about who you survive with. I was married for 56 years before my husband passed away. 56 years. In a world where relationships often seem disposable, that number sounds almost impossible to some. People ask me for the secret. What is the secret to a long, happy marriage? It isn't romance in the way the movies show it. I think the secret was this. We both wanted it to work. That is the core of it. A marriage can work when both people work on it. When you have that shared commitment, something wonderful happens. You bring out the best in each other. It just seems to go better and better. But do not think it is easy. It is very hard. You are taking two individuals from different backgrounds, often different cultures, and trying to make them move in unison. It takes effort. My husband was the kind of person who was going to live forever. He was totally optimistic. He played tennis and squash right up until the end. He wanted to live, but he died at 82 from a stroke. It was sudden. He had a stroke, lasted 6 days, and then he was gone. And that brings me back to what I told you earlier about coping. You can do everything right. You can be optimistic. You can play tennis. You can want to live. And death still comes. The only thing you can control is how you treat the people you love while they are still here. You asked me earlier to define love. Boy, that is hard. It is a word we throw around so easily. But when you have lived almost a century, you realize how complex it truly is. If I had to put it into words, I would say love is the feeling that you really truly understand another person. And yet, there is still something special, a special appeal that remains. It is a balance. You must know them completely, the good and the bad, and still feel that pull toward them. That is what sustained my marriage for 56 years. It wasn't just duty, and it wasn't just passion. It was a deep understanding coupled with a desire to be near them. But even with deep love and a long life, there are things that slip away. If I could go back and change one thing, it would be the way I treated my memories. I never kept a journal. I never took a lot of pictures. At the time, I didn't think it was necessary. I was arrogant in my own way. I always felt these things would simply stay in my mind forever. I was sure I would never forget the important moments. That didn't turn out to be the case. You do forget. It is a harsh truth, but the mind is not a steel trap. It is a sieve. Time washes over you, and details you thought were indelible just fade away. Now, sometimes I look at a picture, one of the few I have, and I think, if I hadn't had that picture, I never would have thought of that moment again. It is gone from my head, existing only on that piece of paper. So I do regret that. I wish I had taken more pictures. I wish I had kept a journal. Absolutely. I was busy doing other things, living in the moment, which is important, but I didn't realize the future me would want to visit the past me. Don't make that mistake. Write it down. Take the photo. Your memory is not as strong as you think it is. As we come to the end of this conversation, there is one final truth I want to leave you with. It is something I wish more people understood, especially today, when the world feels so fractured. The decisions that you make are very, very important. Every choice sends a ripple out into the world. But the most critical thing is this. You cannot make your decisions selfishly. We live in a time that encourages us to look inward, to prioritize me above all else. But that is a hollow way to live. You have to remember you are part of humanity. You are not an island. You are a piece of a much larger picture. You have to be aware of that connection. When you are deciding what to do with your life, or how to treat a neighbor, or how to raise your children, you must ask yourself how that choice serves the whole, not just yourself. It serves you well if you realize that. If you can learn to make your decisions less selfishly, you will find a different kind of satisfaction, one that lasts longer than the fleeting happiness we are all chasing. I am 97 years old. My past is long and my future is short. But you have the time. You have the time to make the decisions that will shape not just your life, but the humanity you are a part of. Don't take it lightly.